So just kind of take me back to the beginning of growing up in Philly. I read that, initially you were, you had your dreams on playing football. You got hurt, dropped out, and then kind of changed your trajectory of, moving forward in life. So just give me a little glimpse of that, a little bit more details.
Just growing up in West Philly in the crack era, just had dreams bigger than my arms length. I was playing at West Philly High. Broke my ankle and just diverted my physical dreams as far as like being that football star, that MLB star, and I just it's like let me work my mind, and that's that's an entrepreneurial spirit that my family has. So I was just falling in line of how they changed the game, being entrepreneurs. So I fell in line with that. And so I used my skills being a people person, a great chef, and all around just meshed those all together and went on my mission.
After the injury and things went down, you started your own business of, selling. I believe it mistake. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or is it called water ice or
Yeah, water ice.
water
Yeah,
ice?
yeah,
You started your
yeah.
own business
Uh-huh.
with that. How did you get into that? I know you said you had that hustle was already in your family, kind of already in your blood, in your genes. So what made you think of that?
Just so summer league basketball games are big in Philly. Back in the day, all the rec centers had all the top summer leagues, and all the top future NBA players. That's where they started at, and I said, man, to service them like most people, they was out there selling sodas and little stuff. I said, let me take it up a notch. I went and got me a water ice freezer, started selling. You know, um, and showing up at outside of the gates doing that. And then I started making cakes. I turned it up a notch and I started making fresh baked cakes. And the response was, I filled the void. The response was there and it just, start capitalizing from that.
So tell me about how you got involved in Mitchell, and that's how you first got your foot in the door.
Well, like you read, I was a customer for years when, just having the love of the sports and how, and the fashion of it, just seeing those old uniforms and like, wow, these craftily made, limited supply done, made in Philly because it was a factory that was making them in Philly, and it's like, wow, man, and then all these, great athletes that I admired their stats, and then the colors and how most guys they looked at them like we would go and buy the hats, the Negro League hats at Mitchell and Ness, but it's like, man, it was $20 hats, but venturing off seeing these $300 jerseys in the early '90s was non-existent. It's like, man, that's some Gucci or what I mean, Ralph Lauren type stuff, and nobody knew who who this company was or anything. Like, man, I ain't spending no money on that. But my curiosity, I was like, man, I like this old Hank Aaron jersey, this old Jackie Robinson, and I invested in there, and knowing, I just saw a diamond in the rough. I was like, man, nobody. I said, I'm one day I'm gonna let the world know, what I mean, who this company is, and I was on my mission. It took 10 years in the making, but that's what it was. That's what happened. The dream was in. I had that dream in its infancy, and I was just wearing it, being a customer, and seeing the response, and I'm like, let's get it on a grand stage, and one day, people want to know that the name, the brand, and everything else.
So I want to kind of backtrack just a little bit. Like you brought it up, and your answer just right there. So I was born in '95. So
Baby.
Jersey air, yeah, the Jersey. So growing up, it was the normal thing, right?
Yeah.
Early 2000s, it was like as a kid, you either wearing a white tee or you throwing on a jersey, wherever you go.
Sure.
So just kind of was it. So early 90s, like you mentioned, was it really not really a thing? Like I know guys were wearing some jerseys, but was it? I know it wasn't as big as once you made your mark on it, but how was that seen?
It was, that was just something to do. Like, you wore, like back then, nobody wore authentic jerseys back then. Like, so if you saw somebody wore a jersey, it was like a $40 champion jersey, but nobody really thought about investing $300 or more into a jersey, like because authentic champion jerseys and starter jerseys, they would cost that much, but they were hard to find. Like East Bay, you had to specially order. You can never go to a retail outlet and they had authentic jerseys on display because the demand wasn't there. So when I did have a Steelers, Rod Woodson. He was one of my favorite players growing up. So when I bought my Steelers Rod Woodson starter jersey, that was $300 something. I had to order that off of East Bay and wasn't no internet. All you know is the internet. You had to call East Bay, give them your credit card and everything. So, the adventure of that. But at the end of the day, like when the sporting goods stores, the most they had was a replica, Jordan, the top players, Jordan, Bird, Magic, all that, but they didn't supply authentic jerseys. So me, jumping from that to, wearing old school, and back then it wasn't the other leagues; it was just baseball. So buying and wearing old Hank Aaron or Mickey Mantle jersey, like you stop traffic because the people that that frequent Mitchell and that's just for the go by because they the ones that sold the Negro League hats. So like dang, like yo, Big Rube wearing them jerseys, like ain't nobody buying them, you know what I mean? Like and I was wearing them. That was my uniform. And it's like I got the reaction. Yo, they cool, like, but I just can't see myself spending $300-400 on no jersey. That's crazy. They ain't Polo, they ain't Gucci. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that's why I was making my mark.
Gotcha. I got a little pushback for you. I remember the East Bay days just a little bit.
All
Like my
right.
mom, I remember sitting down with my mom, like picking out, asking mom to call in. But yeah,
Yes,
but you're
sir.
absolutely on point. So,
Mm-hmm.
I want to get into that marketing strategy.
Yes,
So
sir.
how you took a company, Mitchell and Ness, and took it to the level that you took it to. What was the plan, and how did you execute it?
It was just, like my brashness, like going from selling water ice cakes and fried chicken to people waiting in barbershops and hair salons all through Philly, that my marketing skills was there. I'm going in barbershops like I'm breaking down new ground, going all over Philly because Philly is like every other city territorial. Like, you know what I mean? Who this like? But I'm going in there like, yo, I got fresh baked goods, I got fried chicken, and selling myself. And like, man, all right, let me give you a shot. Like, boom, and then the hardest customer is a black woman. You know what I mean? Convincing them while they waiting 4 or 5 hours to get their hair done, and got them buying my fresh baked goods and my fried chicken while they waiting under that dryer. And once I found that zen, I got them, and then once I proved myself, it was like the network went out, and this is like I said pre-internet. Like, yo, my homegirl got a shop at so and so. part, go, go hit them up. They waiting on you. You know what I mean? And it just spread from there. So my marketing skills was already down. So it was just taking another product that I knew I was getting a reception off of. And I'm like, man, once I got with Mitchell and Ness and we came up with a partnership. It was like, okay, I started calling record companies and everything, magazines. They was hanging up on me. It was crazy. They thought, like when I do my public speaking, I always ask the audience, I said, what does Mitchell and Ness sound like? Forget about what you already know. And a few people put their hand up and be like, "That sounds like a law firm." I said, "So just imagine calling Def Jam Records, Arista, and all that, and they hanging up on you." Yeah, my name's Reuben Harley. I'm calling from Mitchell Ness. Ding, like that. So after that, I used to just get on Amtrak. You know what I mean? I had their addresses. I just go bum rush the record companies and magazine shoots, all that. You know what I mean? And it was just creating a relationship, and all the local artists I knew. I had relationships with already, like Beanie Siegel, Philly's Most Wanted, the Roots, all that. I had that. So I with that relationship, but getting out to the world. You know what I mean? I had to get on that train, and that's what I did.
Do you remember who was like your first? Who was that first customer to really give you, you know, hear you out and really give you a shot and purchase those jerseys?
It was not real. It wasn't like it wasn't a salesman type thing. It was just the marketing. Like
Okay.
when I got to meet outside of Philly, like it was Fab. I ran into him at Memorial Day weekend in Miami. Yeah, Miami. It was like 2000, and he saw me wearing a jersey, and we in the hotel. He was like, "Yo, man, a lot of them joints, man." And and it just from there, I was like, "Yeah," I said, "I'm Big Rube," you know what I mean? I said, "Yeah, the company Mitchell and Ness, I'm about to put them on the map." Like, you say, "Yeah, for real?" It's like, "Man, get with me." And then boom, and then when he did that video with him and Clue and Warren, was it Warren Jew? When they wore the jerseys in there, it was just like the eclipse of it. That was the beginning, and it just started, snowball from there. You know what I mean? Girls, girls, girls video, and everybody came calling.
You know, I've watched a couple of your interviews as well. And
Okay.
one thing that stood out is that at one point the company had grossed 2 million. And then I believe you mentioned that and that you kind of after the marketing went in, the strategy, came to fruition, it got all the way up to 43 million.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It was when I walked in the door, it was 11 people that worked at the company because like all we knew and all I knew was 1229 Walnut Street. And I'm just thinking as a retail store, I didn't know that you know he sold to other with just sporting good companies back then because it wasn't that type of demand. So he wholesale to other sporting goods like Distant Replay was one of the big in Atlanta. That's where Outkast was getting their stuff from. So when I walked in there, it was 11 employees, and we hired over 100. We had over 100 people working after my marketing plan exploded everything because that's one of the things that changed the fashion, sports, everything. Like it changed the world because all high end uh, designers were copying off the silhouettes, the looks, everything. What I was able to pioneer and market that somebody came and copied on all facets, quality from price point, looks, uh, all that. You know what I mean? I remember DKNY did a jersey that looked like a Johnny Unitas Colts jersey, and they put 19 on there and put DKNY on there. It's just yeah, so many things that sparked that I lit the match with that everybody wanted to run with.
You mentioned Fab. You mentioned, the guys from Philly like Beanie Siegel and whatnot. When you started, I know Fab, he's from New York, but when you started expanding,
Hmm.
like NBA players, NFL players, other artists, was it surreal in the moment, or was it like, hey, this is business?
It was a little bit of both, like, because one of the things I said, privately, publicly, like, I I saw how big it could be. I did know that. Now, to the extent that it did, and with it, no, I had no idea. But how people were interested in my story, to be in Time Magazine, Sports Illustrated, Today's Show, Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. I mean, you name it, the media. I was on a Japanese publication. Now, for people to want my backstory, that's something I never imagined. Like, to have Michael Jordan and Dr. J call me, my cell phone personally, because they needed jerseys for their charity events, and just wanted to meet me and thank me for keeping their name relevant after they stopped playing. Now, I never fathomed that, but it was just like it was a dream that I had that, I always tell people I had an out of body experience, laying in my bed one day, and I was just looking at myself and I was crying like, wow, you can't tell me dreams can't come true, because I really made it happen. That somebody, a company that nobody cared about, nobody, that were going bankrupt, and I came in and I saved the whole company. I brought sports in the forefront. I brought fashion. Put the culture, because I did it for the culture. You know what I mean? Because I knew that the power of hip hop and combined with sports, and it just it exploded.
I want to talk about the jersey dress. Were you behind, the plan of that, or the making?
Yeah, it was hip hop, how we wore the and how we wore our style were extra baggy. So when Mitchell and Ness, they had they only made regular jerseys. They ain't know a guy that wear medium with 1 to 2X. You know what I mean? So that medium jersey was not moving. You know what I mean? Because like I said, the initial customer that he targeted, older white men, they didn't respond to the jerseys and the style and the silhouettes like hip hop did. So there was a lot of inventory of all these small sizes. So I'm like, wow, it has to be that as goods. It has to be sold and done that. I'm saying, wow, women, they stylish. I said, so I had my grandma make a couple of jersey dresses, and I did a photo shoot and an ad campaign. The next thing I put it out there like, man, you want it custom made? Call this number. You know what I mean? And my grandma was sewing them up, and I put them on Eve, Faith, a bunch of artists, Mariah Carey, and that's where it happened. So that surplus inventory that was just sitting there because we didn't wear those small sizes. The women bought them, so made jersey dresses.
You don't really think about, like, hey, back then, of course, the biggest styles were in, like, people weren't going up 2-3 sizes. When it comes to not only just jerseys but shirts in general,
Yes,
pants in
sir.
general. So being able to be creative with the stuff left over, that's and then you talked about your grandma, helping as well. So that's
Oh
big, right?
yeah, my grandmom, like I have her down there at the in the Wells Fargo Center, was they just changed the name the last couple of days. But yeah, we down there, the Sixers cheerleaders. She down there taking their measurements. We even watched the Sixers game and everything. Yeah, it's amazing. You know, the Knicks dancers. So it was a whole lot of 'em. It was like brought spark to her life. You know, she was in her 70s at the time, and yeah, just she loved it. You know what I mean? It's like wow. And then he spoke about it. They did an interview with me in New York Times, like how I changed that. So that was a great feather in the cap.
It's well documented as well that things came to an end. Of course, you had your fallout with Mitchell and Ness, and the company kind of changed hands and whatnot. What was the main reason behind that?
Well, it's still in a lot in litigation that I
Okay.
can't really talk about too much, but at the end of the day, we it wasn't a amicable split. You don't pay $250 million for a company and not have my footprint on there, and especially guys that's from my culture that I know personally, and they act like I never existed. Like, I know Meek since he was a kid. Jay-Z as well from Brooklyn, and they just shun me to the side like I'm 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 garbage, and that's total disrespect. Pepperidge Farm, Smuckers, wherever. When you read their bio, they tell everything soup to nuts. But you read Mitchell and Ness, and it's like the guys that Mitchell and Ness, the golfing, and boom, and then oh yeah, hip hop, and like no, who brought that to hip hop? You know what I mean? And it's a more enriching story that some high school dropout from West Philly that is well documented. You just put it up there, let the world know. My old partner Peter, he hugged her, was like, "Man, thank you for giving birth to him, because he took my family's company out of bankruptcy."
Say your top three favorite jerseys.
Oh yeah, 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 no doubt, no doubt. Like it's always one of my favorite is a sleeveless 1960 Roberto Clemente Pirates jersey. That's I just love. I mean Clemente. I'm a baseball fan first and foremost, and I love like the sleeveless jerseys that MLB has done over the years. So that's my favorite. That one of the favorites, and then you go to the iconic Hank Aaron '74 Braves jersey that he hit the broke the home run record, and the reason you saw that Bullets jersey, that West Unseld Bullets jersey that you see Cameron wearing in Old Boy video. And those video like you saw that iconic of them because they the ones that I wanted to see produced, and those especially that Bullets jersey that was so hard to get made. And that's why it was $450 jersey because the how the pattern is how it got sold, and remember they were done, everything was manufactured in America, so at the volume, we didn't do big quantities. It's a high end low quantity company, and it's that's one of my favorites, that West Unseld jersey.
I see your posts, see you chefing it up.
Yes sir.
Cheese steaks. Oh, my bad. Yeah, cheese steaks, cheese
Yeah,
steaks. In DC, see in DC, we call them steak and cheese. I
yeah,
know.
no doubt, no doubt,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I just like I said, cooking is my pay. I'm left-handed, so people always ask me, which one do you? Anything that I'm doing, that's my passion. So all these things, I company and my passion. You know what I mean? I love to write. I love cooking. I'm a marketer. That's my passion. I always get, well, what's your favorite thing? I'm like, and nobody can understand. You know, I'm right-brained because I'm left-handed. Everything that I do, I'm not is not my favorite here. Is just this is what I love to do. I'm giving you my purpose, and especially when you eating my food, from my fried chicken to my lasagna and my cheesesteak, you're gonna taste it. Like I have literally had people that come to my restaurant. It's like, man, they stop and they find me or they come knocking on the kitchen like, man, I never tasted nobody nothing like this. Like I'm really tasting your passion. I said, and that's what I do. I don't do things like a factory just to put it out there, to get the money. It's like, no, if I'm going to do something for you, it's going to be the best of my ability, and you're going to, especially with my cooking, you're going to taste it.
Gotcha. And where you located?
I'm in the Maniac section of Philly. Yeah, Main Street.
Okay. Cool.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Pitcher's Pub.
Pitches Pub. Okay. I take a trip to Philly maybe
Yeah,
once twice a year. So
yeah.
I,
Well, you need to come more often
I'm
because
I'm
I
try to
just
stop
had,
by.
yeah, I just had a guy drove up from Baltimore. Everybody got ate the other day. You know what I
Okay.
mean? People come from all over. You know what I
I hear
mean?
you. Hear
Yeah,
you, Big
they
Rube.
find me out. I'm the most slept on cheesesteak because like my loyal customers, they give me a compliment this service at the same time because they like it's so good. We don't want everybody to know about it, so they keep it amongst themselves. So I said it's the most slept on because they know if it get real big on the internet, I have
Yeah.
a line going outside the doors.
Yeah, like I said, man, I appreciate it's really big for me, the type of content I put. I remember I talked to you, you DM me like when I did the jersey dress video a couple years ago, you
Yeah, I
DM me, you kind
remember.
of gave me that breakdown of, the history. And I had no clue. I didn't know because just me being young at the time,
Yeah.
I didn't know who Big Rube was. So
Yeah, I understand. I get that a lot. Like I remember one day, this is blew my mind. I'm walking doing because I do fashion photography, so I'm walking. It was between shows in New York during Fashion Week, and there was a bunch of young boys. They was wearing Mitchell and Ness hats and gear, and my homie Chris and stopped all them. He's like, "Yo, you know what y'all wearing?" They like, "Oh yeah, man, it's Mitchell and that." Boom, boom, boom. He said, so he handed them the phone and like showed them like some internet stuff, Google about me, and they was like, "Yo, get there!" And they was going crazy. Man, we had no idea. I said,
yeah,
yeah, I get that a lot. Like kids, people be right in front of me wearing my legacy and have no idea. It's like
no clue.
the direct connect.
All right,
All
Rube.
right.
Will take it easy, all right?
You too. Have a great evening.
On this memory here at Rocker Park. At his theme. Somebody leave the basket. We're gonna see when the ball go post. Snaps. Tell me yesterday, HBC.
Man, once again, man, I appreciate you having me, man, and congrats, man, on the platform. And I say, keep it going, keep doing your thing.